In here for interviews. We're going to get to those young guys here in a second. A quick reminder, like us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you help UCSS grow as big as it can by your support. It costs $0, 0 cents. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Help us make UCSS as big as it can get. The Browns do have two young offensive gurus interviewing for the open head coaching position today or tomorrow. One of the two. Scheelhouse, the Rams passing game coordinators today. Grant Udinsky is interviewing for the open position tomorrow. Bo, we know how you feel on Udinsky, so I want to start with G. G, if it was up to you between Rams passing game coordinator, 35-year-old Nate Scheelhaase, or 30-year-old Jags offensive coordinator Grant Udinsky for the Browns open head coaching position. These are the opposites of the Munkin and the Schwartz. Which way do you lean if it came down to these two young offensive gurus?
Man.
You're calling guys offensive gurus who have never called plays. Like, I don't know that they're offensive gurus.
Sure.
I like
offensive minds.
I like the fact that I think Udinsky played. He played in college, right?
Well, Scheelhouse definitely
They both did.
So Udinsky, when he was at Baylor, I heard a story where he was basically, they brought him in as, I think he was the offensive assistant or offensive guy. And basically he sold everything he had to be, get that job. He stayed in, he was sleeping in his car, and then the defensive coordinator brought him in. It talked about how, he is so hands-on when it comes to breaking down different things, and how he has this idea and mindset of, he's in the weeds when it comes to a lot of stuff. He's kind of quirky. All he cares about is football. I think he does hiking. He said the only time that he's around or off the field or not talk about football is when he's doing hiking and doing stuff like that. Is he notorious for people calling him at 2:30 in the morning, hitting him up like, yo, hey, what you think about this play? And he always answers his phone. So for me, he seemed like a hungry dude. He seemed like a dude that wants to make his mark in the league. He seems like a guy that is up for a challenge. For me, I like that type of energy. You may not get your top candidate that's an old head that got options like Harbaugh, Tomlin, a lot of these dudes. But these guys right here, I think, one, the innovation. Two, the fact that I feel like they can relate to younger quarterbacks, that they can see life the same way they see it. And I think, in general, if you look at him or Scheelhouse, they've been in some systems and they've been around from some people who really are smart. Like this guy right here is a pass game coordinator. Now look, it's one thing about the Rams, I can say they got people wide open all the time. Now they got Puka Nacua and they had Cooper Kupp, but they be open a lot.
Yeah, so for me, I'm intrigued by both of these young candidates, man. I think they are some very, very intelligent young men. I do think they have some level of offensive brilliancy to them. I know Bull don't like that because they're young, but when you are that young, you might lack some life experiences, but your ideas is fresh. You see the world from a different view, and you got to understand you got to be changing as the times change. I look at a guy like Scheelhouse. That would be my pick if the Cleveland Browns was to go with one of these young men. He's a disciple of Sean McVay, and he's a guy that he has learned how to draw plays as he's gone through the coaches that he's worked with through the ranks. And so to me, that lets me know that he has a very, very creative mind, and that his concepts and things that he, like to put out there is very different and very unique. He seems to be a very, very good communicator. I actually know somebody whose nephew played with him at the University of Illinois and spoke very, very highly of him.
That's where I remember him from.
Yeah,
quarterback.
That's
quarterback there.
Okay. That's why I remember that name.
When I look at him and I first heard his name, come on the board, I ain't gonna lie to you. I was a Harbaugh guy. I really wanted Harbaugh. But if you was to scale back of your favors of the big names and look more realistically, he to me has stood out a lot. Grant, 30 years old. If you hear him talk, he sounds like he's about 40. Very, very mature for his age. I've seen the stories too. Anybody who get it out the mud and really, really passionate about it and willing to do it willing to do it under the most adverse circumstances, and you can still be that rose to grow from concrete and figure things out, don't make no excuses for yourself. Yep. It says a lot about his accountability, his maturity level, and things like that. And sometimes, you got to be able to give people a shot. Because, you know, I heard some of the things that you said, and I kind of disagree with that. And real quick, before you go, I just put myself in that, right? I used to work for the city of Cleveland for the courts. And when you work for the courts, that's a very important job. You are the record keeper. And when you are a supervisor, the stroke of your pen can put somebody in jail, out of jail. You write affidavits, the wrong letter, the wrong number can screw somebody's life up. I was promoted to supervisor at 23 years old. At the time, I had 2 years total experience. I supervised 7 people that was all older than me and had much more experience than me. You look at Andrew Berry. The Browns took a chance on him at 32 years old. So it's not the
Right, but he hasn't done a good job, though.
It's not the craziest idea in the world to think that Andrew Berry is willing to take a chance on a 35 or a 30-year-old who might be next up, even if it's a year early.
What did I say specifically that you disagree with?
Like, I just think you can just they don't have enough life experiences, and that might be true. But sometimes, like, what you lack in one area, you might be better in other areas. When you're that young, in my opinion, because I'm closer to their age than you are, all you got to do is just, like, be a good communicator, be a good people person, have active listening. Like, don't walk around like you know it all. Be willing to, you know, ask questions and get help when you don't really know the answer. Don't always think just because you got this position at this age that you know every damn thing about it.
What I said was they're not likely to be as ready as someone that's been around longer, which is true. I mean, it doesn't mean it's impossible. So, to me, these are two totally different candidates. You've grouped them together, Mike, and I think that's unfair. Scheelhouse has way more high-level experience as a coach. Udinsky, to me, again, I'm not saying he won't be a good coach. I'm not saying he's not very smart. Grant Udinsky, to me, has almost no chance of success. This guy has essentially been a high-level coach for 1 year. That's it. He was an assistant position coach until this year, and he's 30 years old. The odds that he's the right man for the job are minuscule. Nate Scheelhaase is a totally different story. He's been at least a position coach for almost a decade. That's a huge difference. Like, he's been... No, some of that's wrong, Mike. Some of those things are wrong because.
No, it's not.
Let me double check this because I was looking at his.
You're thinking of someone else because this is right.
I'm gonna.
He said this is right.
All right, here we go. I'm gonna bring it up. So Nate Scheelhaase. What did you have? Put that back up again.
Okay.
Okay. So you said Iowa. Okay, Iowa State assistant. Fine, but when you say he was a position coach, Mike, that entire time.
Well, I only have so many characters to fit here. But
okay, but there's a
his
big
technical
difference.
title in 2021 was running game coordinator / running back / wide receivers coach. That's not going to fit on there.
I hear you, but Mike, he was during that time. Okay, he was from 18 to 22. He was a position coach. There's a big difference between being a position coach and an offensive assistant. Would you not agree?
Yes.
That's a huge difference. The offensive assistants are basically like gophers.
They're getting tape. They're cutting up stuff.
You're doing. That's a totally different job. You are leading a group.
Yeah.
Okay. Udinsky has led a group for 1 year. Mm-hmm. This guy has led a group for 8 years, from 18 till now. He worked under Matt Campbell, one of the best coaches in college football. Mm-hmm. Right. He's now worked under Sean McVay, in my opinion, the best coach in the NFL. Mm-hmm. Unlike the Belichick tree, which has been rotten, what's his name? McVay, thank you. The McVay tree has been good.
McVay's tree has been terrific.
Terrific.
I mean, Steve, you can take this graphic if you want, but
look at the McVay tree.
It's incredible.
They all draw plays, man.
All LaFleur, good coach. Zach Taylor, I hate him, but he's an adequate coach. Liam Cohen, first year was great. Kevin O'Connell appears to be a really good coach. Brandon Staley hasn't been a head coach, but like all these guys.
He was a head coach, though, for the Chargers.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's true. He didn't do a great job.
Didn't do a great job, but he was a head
overall,
coach.
McVay knows talent. He knows talent of players. He saw the impact that Scheelhouse was having with Matt Campbell in college, said, I want that guy. So to me, there's a big difference between Udinsky and Scheelhouse. And again, let me make it very clear. Udinsky might be brilliant. I just can't. I think the odds of a 30-year-old with 1 year of leading a group, to imagine him as a head coach, again, just so unlikely. Scheelhouse, I'm on board. If you had to ask me right now, of all the coaches they've interviewed or are about to interview, if you have to pick one, I would take Scheelhouse. I'm with you there.
I want Scheelhouse.
Yeah.
I would say that I think we got to take things in context and consideration. Your resume is your resume, right? Your experience level is your experience level.
Right.
But how you go into an interview and you explain is a large part of why people hire you. You can have the best resume and not interview well. You can have a great resume and they ask you and put you in certain situations. And a lot of interview processes is not just answering questions. They give you, tell me a time when. Give me a time where, how would you fix this?
Sure.
Tell me, some of the interview process can come in. They can give you a tape of Shedeur Sanders. They can give you a tape of Deshaun Watson, Dylan Gabriel, offensive line fronts, and say, okay, what I want you to do is I want you to come in here and diagram me an offense and tell me why this play didn't work or why. What do you think about this? Or give me
That's what a smart team would do. I don't know if Jimmy's doing it.
Well, we have to assume, Fowler said, they've done their most research on the most people.
What I don't understand about that, but how would Fowler know that the Browns have done the most research?
I mean,
that's just silly.
I
love Fowler, but it doesn't
I
make any
agree
sense.
with you on this one. It's a cool little note, but
watch. It's also a cool little way of saying the Browns have reached out to more people than anybody in the NFL.
They made the most phone calls.
And by default, a lot of people told them no, but at least they can put it on record that they had them down. I'll say this: if they get and I was with you to a certain extent when it comes to, you are taking a gamble.
Yeah,
it is a huge gamble for you to take a guy that does not have the adequate experience right now. However, the people who gamble big are the ones that usually win. Lamar Jackson, when the Ravens drafted Lamar Jackson, that wasn't a guaranteed slam dunk thing. Josh Allen was a guaranteed slam dunk thing. McVay was not a guaranteed slam dunk thing.
I mean, Lamar Jackson was picked 32nd. It wasn't like he was the first pick in the draft. Me personally, I thought Lamar Jackson was going to be excellent.
But sometimes you got to take some chances. Now, between Scheelhouse and Udinsky,
you want Udinsky, right?
I don't. It's a toss up, man.
You know what else, boy? You ain't bring up. I ain't bring up either, and I don't think nobody really thought about this. Scheelhouse is the one that's getting all the name recognition, and Mike LaFleur is the offensive coordinator, and I don't think nobody has asked to interview him.
Yeah, that's weird.
At all. So it goes to show exactly how highly people think about Scheelhouse right now and what his projected potential could look like.
Mike, how many other teams have interviewed Scheelhouse for head coaching jobs?
He's doing 4 today.
4?
Steelers is on that list.
How many is Udinsky doing?
I'm not sure. I'll find Udinsky in a sec. Today, LaFleur's interviewing.
LaFleur is interviewing.
All the Rams coordinators and coaches are doing their head coach interviews today because they are still playing.
Right.
They're all remote interviews, by the way. They cannot meet in person until after. So Chris Shula today is interviewing with the Steelers, Ravens, and Dolphins. It's according to Albert Breer, by the way. Mike LaFleur is interviewing with the Cardinals and Raiders.
Okay.
And Scheelhouse is interviewing with the Browns, Steelers, Ravens, and Raiders.
And so, okay. So 4 teams.
3 in the AFC North.
I think that's fascinating. Now, Chris Shula definitely turned the Browns down because they had requested to interview him. So there was a lot. But it is interesting that more people, as far as we know, have requested Scheelhouse than the offensive coordinator.
I think it's interesting the actual teams that's requested.
Yeah, they're right that it's all AFC North
because
teams.
it lets you know, like, okay, there's a strong possibility that if it's not the Browns, we might have to deal with Scheelhouse in some capacity.
You know, the Browns they'll widen it. They had to widen the net because there was more jobs out there. Yeah. So, you know, they got to, when you crossing a lot of people off the board, you got to get down to your list and you start to think, oh, well, that person was at the bottom of the list, but we figured out 4 or 5 people that ain't going to interview with us.
Right.
And so now you got to bring in some of these guys. So the crazy part about it is Udinsky might be the last dude standing, and that's why his name is in the hopper.
I haven't seen, and I just did a quick Google and Twitter search of another team interviewing Udinsky for a head coach.
Okay, so no other team is interviewing for a head coaching job. I mean,
I could be wrong. I did a quick search.
I
on
just
both.
don't
I
get
don't
that.
see it.
So
why aren't they talking to Brian Flores? Why aren't they talking to Jeff Hafley? Why aren't they talking with Robert Saleh? I mean, maybe those guys have turned them down.
Maybe-
but I'd want to talk to those three
But
guys.
no, like to Bull's point, I
Yeah.
think if they were on the radar, we would have heard something by now that the Browns is
Right.
interested, or I've not
Right.
heard any of their names at all.
Right, like
And
Walsh we've heard.
We've all kind of, in our own way, kind of brought them up as potential
Yes.
candidates, but I'm starting to think it's either going to be Shula or Hafley that end up in Miami in particular.
Yeah.
Shula got the lineage ties. Hafley's
Yeah.
you got the connection. I think somebody that was an exec in Green Bay just became
right,
the
right,
GM
right.
there.
Tyvus thinks he's going to end up in Miami.
and here's another thing. Maybe those guys. Look, this coaching search is funny to me because I've always said I don't know what the heck they're gonna do. Like,
Yeah, I don't have a great feel
I
for it.
I don't have no feel.
I'm open-minded though. I put this on social
No,
media
right.
yesterday.
I think we'll be most disappointed. I agree. I'm open-minded, but
I'll
if
be more
Todd Monk
disappointed
is
if
the
it's
That's
guy,
the only one.
I'm going to be disappointed.
So okay,
Yeah.
if you got one candidate that you like, nah, I'm cool.
If
on.
I had to
No, we
kick
doing
out
that
one
later.
guy-
We doing that later.
I'm
I ain't gonna
cool.
spill it, but it's a guy that we haven't talked about
I'm
that might
cool.
be in the loop.
Oh yeah, I mentioned the guy.
Yeah, but I'll say this. I am open-minded, and I put this on social media yesterday. I'm somebody
Yeah.
who wanted to see a head coaching change. So I can't want to see a head coaching change
Right.
and then be pessimistic about the entire process. I got to give whomever a chance. I can't have this predetermined mindset that it's going to all go to hell.
No,
it's gonna
yeah,
all
you're
look back, look bad. So I am just really just trying to, as a fan, just keep the optimism. It's been a long time since I've been optimistic, and this is me we talking about, since I've been optimistic about the Browns. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, cross your T's, dot your I's, let's see how it ends up. I will say this. I ain't going to say no names, but somebody that covers the Cleveland Browns very, very closely told me 2 days after Kevin was fired that he thinks that Andrew Berry is going to pair himself with a very young offensive mind. So to see how the searches kind of went the way it has, regardless of, us wanting the heavy hitters, is trending towards the direction that I heard early on.
And plus, so you got to think about it like this. And Andrew Berry said, the head coach is going to have a large say in what's going on with the quarterback room, right?
Andrew Berry,
Yeah.
in terms of he's the one acquiring the players.
Yeah, right. So the thought process is, if you're going to say that, that means that you want the best eyes looking at it. So doesn't that mean you would prefer to have an offensive mind looking at your quarterback room, especially given the fact that the offense is what you put your emphasis in on this year?
Yeah. And also, listen, in terms of Scheelhouse and Udinsky, there's always the possibility if Schwartz gets the job that they hire one of those two guys. Now, they could stick with Tommy Rees. I don't love that idea, but they could also hire one of those guys to be the OC.
Right.
Those guys don't call plays, so they could take a job. Would they? I don't know, but
Yeah, what do you think?
Scheelhouse could also very well, like if Chris Shula gets a job and Scheelhouse doesn't get a head coaching job,
He can go
I
to
could see
Shula.
him going to be the OC for Shula.
McNuggets,
That'll
because
That's a very likely possibility.
Yeah.
Because Udinsky, you feel like because Udinsky is not, he's not, interviewing with other teams for head coaching jobs. Do you think this is something to get his mind and opinion? If they do have Schwartz, that you can give play calling to Udinsky, and because he doesn't call plays in Jacksonville, that would give him an opportunity to move.
Yeah, same thing with Scheelhouse.
Certainly possible.
Same with Scheelhouse.
Because Scheelhouse, neither one of them is the golf. Well, Scheelhouse is not even the offensive
I just think
coordinator.
when Udinski, when you highlight, okay, you only
Yeah.
got 1 year of controlled experience. Like, what if the Browns was looking at it with him like, man, I'd rather be a year early than a year late and miss out on somebody that's going to grow into it. And so this is why this is the most important decision that Andrew Berry is going to make to date. And so you gotta weigh everything. It's going to be interesting to see how that actually turned out, to be totally honest.
Would you be cool? Are you more comfortable with him as offensive coordinator?
Oh,
Udinsky?
yeah, definitely. Yeah. Because then you don't have to be you're not. The head coach has got to be a leader of men. We need that. And I just find it hard to believe that, guys like Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward And
especially if
you're like, what?
if
This guy's 30 years old and he's barely coached.
The problem is if you get off to a bad start.
Yeah, you're right.
If you get off to a bad start and you 1-4 or something, that's a lot of pressure on a dude that ain't never really dealt with it. And you know how we is here. All hell break loose.
Well, G, just look at last point. We'll move on, but look at the Jets. They hired Aaron Glenn last year. That was the guy they wanted from the get-go. They got their guy, right? And this season went to hell, and there were legitimate talks about firing Aaron Glenn this offseason. He enters his second season on the hot seat.
Well, and that's not a comparison to these guys. I mean, Aaron Glenn has tons of experience.
He's more experienced. My point is, if they said they get off to a slow start, if you go with somebody, and I'm not saying they shouldn't, I'm just saying,
and they go 2-15 next year, he might be fired after 1 year.
Exactly. So it all adds up.